Hi everyone, this is Deborah and today I'm starting a brand new quilt. This fabric that I'm using is called Summer Breeze and it's by Moda and it's beautiful blues and yellows. Coupled with that, I'm using Devonstone fabric, just a plain in what's called bright white. I bought a bolt this morning because I use a lot of white and it's cheaper to buy the bolt, which is 10 meters, than it is to buy it by the meter. So I just thought I'd splash out and buy the whole bolt. Now, I'm going to draw you a picture of what I want to do because, again, this is just in my head and I'm not sure that it's going to work out, but we'll give it a go. So it's going to be a no measure quilt again. I'm really getting into this idea of not measuring my fabric and, trying to match up corners and blocks and things like that. So I'm thinking that I want like little bits of random size. I know I'm drawing boxes, but they can be any size of the colour. And then coupled with that, I kind of want the white. So that would be white. And then this next piece would be white. So all of that would be white. That would be white, white, white. And then I would have another piece with little bits of, colour in them. And that's what I'm thinking of. Now, I could chop this fabric that I've got up into tiny, little bits. I could chop it up into, that sort of size and build it around this. I wanted to use yardage because I've been thinking about this idea in my head and I haven't actually sat down and drawn it out. But I'm thinking if I get a piece of white fabric like this, so if that's the white, and then I cut some of the for example, this fabric here, if I cut a strip of that out and then a bit more of the white in a different width, so all of this would be different widths, I'm not going to measure, and then another strip of another fabric and then more white. And then once I've kind of laid that out, and I'm not sure how long these are going to be, but to make it easier, I'm thinking that I want them quite long, and I probably want them a consistent length, like end to end. I would want that in whatever length I decide on. But once I've done all these big strips, I then will cut them down so that I'm not piecing all these tiny little strips. I'm doing it all at once. It's a bit like when you do strip piecing of a jelly roll and you strip piece them and then you do your subcuts once they're all together. That's kind of what I'm thinking in my head, that if I cut all these different sizes, and then what I do is I take that piece and I'd add more white vertically. So I'd have my coloured piece. Make sure I'm in shot there. Yes, I am. And then I'd put another white piece in, and then I'd have my next coloured piece and then another white piece in. Now, I don't know if that's making sense to anyone but me, but that's what I'm thinking. So I thought I'd give it a little go, and just with a bit of the fabric to start with, do a test piece. Now, the question is, how wide will I do it? I certainly thought maybe, I was thinking 30 inches because that's not quite as big, or it is, how big's my mat? My mat is, my mat's 22, 23 inches. So it's going to be wider than that, or deeper than that, but not quite as long because it's 35 inches long. And I think that's a kind of piece that I could work with at the machine. And because I'm going to be sewing it on quilt as you go, I'm then also going to add the batting at the same time, not the backing fabric, just the batting. So we'll give that a go, will we? And we'll see how far we can get and whether or not I actually like it. So let's start with some fabric ironing and then cutting. If I cut on the long side, because fat quarters are not squares, they are slightly rectangle, if I cut my strip here, that should do with what I'm thinking of. So I'm just going to fold that up. I'm not worrying about fixing the edge, making the edge straight, because I don't need it for this particular sort of quilt. I'm just really having to think about how this is going to work. The idea is there, it's just putting it into, making it happen for me. I only want small squares, so if I cut that way, yes, I'm probably going to just cut a little bit here like that. So that would be one of them. And with my white, I'm going to cut that the same length. So basically, I'm going to cut this in, cut this down so it is the same, because it's double, because it's obviously a full thing. So let's just cut this and see what we think of this. And I will give that a press, and I'll cut maybe one this big. And I will just do one more, so I've got enough. So they should be about the same length, which they are. And then the next one will go here. And I'm going to make sure that I'm cutting selvage to selvage, because that should be my longest part. Let's check our measurements. Yep, so that's the 22 is selvage to selvage. Now, I think I only want a little bit. Although I have to also account for the fact that I'm going to lose width when I join them. So let's try that size to start with, and then we'll do this yellow one. And yes, I have cut in the past, meaning to cut selvage to selvage, and it hasn't worked out like that. So I've ended up with all these short strips, even rather than the longer ones. You can see that's going to be okay. This one is going to be quite small once I've sewn it on both sides. And I think I need some more white bits, so I do have more there. Let me just prep all this and then come back and put it together. What I've just noticed is this is actually not a fat quarter, it's just a quarter of a metre. So I've ended up with two, a really long one, but that's okay. I'll just cut it down and save that strip for another part of the quilt. Now I think I'm going to put this darker blue in. And this one is a fat quarter, so I'm not sure what's going on there. So I thought normally I order, the fat quarters when I buy this sort of stuff. Never mind, not the end of the world, we'll make it work. You can see how pretty that's looking already. I do want another darkish one in there. I'll put this blue one in. So now that is, let's see, 15 and 7, it's about 23 across. Do I need it wider than that? I think I definitely want white on either side. I know that. I don't want to end it in a colour. Okay, I think that what I'll do is I'll sew it, remeasure it, and then probably add some on, because I was thinking if I did it, how big would the block be? Okay. All right, I'm going to go and sew it, and then I'll come back and show you and cut. I've sewn all that through, and what I realised is that my whites were a bit too even, and these as well. So I ended up cutting a couple of fatter white strips, and now I'm going to cut it on the other crossways. So I've got my longer ruler out just to make life a bit easier for me, and I'm just going to line it up with one of the edges here. It doesn't matter to me if it's not perfect. Now that is too small for me to keep, so I'll put that in the bin, but other things will be bigger. So I'm thinking I only want it little. Maybe again I need to vary the sizes. because once I put a 1/4 of an inch, I think that sort of size should be okay. So the plan would be to chop it all up like this and then add other strips in between it. So I'll just do 2 and I'll show you what I'm thinking, because I don't want to join anything together when it's just the 2 like this. But let's say that these were different strips, then this would be here, and then I'd have a piece of white in the middle like that, and then I'd have the next one here. So if they'd be offset and there'd be a lot of white around them. If I put another white there, I think that's why I want to end it in white, because then when I do the next one and join it on, it'll be there. And when I join the next, I'm going to do a big block, and I'm going to quilt as you go, so it's not really going to be a block as such, but it'll be a big piece of quilting, putting down on the page onto the batting. When I do the next one, I may turn it this way, so we get a completely different effect. I'll see how it goes once I get this first one down. And I do think I need some longer ones of these, and also I need to, like when that turns over, so I kind of need to take a 1/2 inch off them. So 1/4 of an inch off each one means that that's going to be, so the size of that strip, as it were, the coloured bit, is going to end up about that much when I take a 1/4 of an inch off each side. And so I think the next time, I think these need to be wider as well. I need to mix up the width of those as well. So you could definitely use scraps for this. It's a perfect project for scraps. My problem is that up until recently, I always bought pre-cuts, and so I never ended up with any scraps because I used all of the pre-cut jelly roll or whatever in the quilt. However, I've since bought some things like this, the fat quarters and things like that. So I now do or will have more scraps. I certainly imagine I'll have scraps left over from this particular project. So let's cut some more and then I'll put some together, because I think this is going to work out. You can see that, like, that's obviously the same strip just turned around, but you could see, like, if this was here, you get a totally different look. So you're going to have this white background and then you're going to have these little pops of colour all over it. So I think that's going to be quite pretty, I'm hoping. Now, if you're wondering why I sort of thought about doing something like this, it's because I was going to do another postage stamp quilt, which I did for one of my fabrics recently, and I really love it. I'll show you a picture of that if I remember to put it up, which hopefully I will. And because I decided on the postage stamp, and then I remembered I did that with a jelly roll with Sunday Stroll by Bonnie and Camille, one of the last sort of releases that they did, I think. And because I did that with the jelly roll, I thought, oh, do I really want to be, doing all that sewing of jelly rolls together when I've been really enjoying this more relaxed sort of quilting? And so this is the answer I decided on. Do I need a really wide one? Probably. Let me do that's probably about the same. Let me do a really wide one. See how we go with that. I'm not even going to open them up. I'm just going to cut the fold like that. I'm getting very lazy, I know, but it works. I mean, how much is it worth the time to unfold it versus just chopping the fold off? I don't know, but there you go. That's what I've done, so that's how it is. guess you have to assess your time. I mean, I have plenty of time, but I'm just lazy. Now, some of these, as I said, I want wider than what I did those other ones, so that when I cut them lengthways, so wider this way, where's that one I did? Let me just grab that one I cut. So you can see that when that's there, the wider that is, no, let me see, it'll be here, sorry, it'll be here. If that's my length there, see that they're only small, because when I cut them this way, I can cut them small, but they'll be wider across here. Trust me, that's what I'm going to do, is do a wider one. I thought I did a wider one before, but I don't know, it didn't seem to turn out that way. Did I cut that pretty blue? No, I haven't. Cut this one. And then, because it's all going to be mixed up, it hopefully will look really pretty. So let me know if you're happy for me to leave these bits in where I'm just cutting and not really talking. I'm not very good at, talking. I mean, I'm good at talking, don't get me wrong. I can talk, but what I meant to say was I'm, not really good at just sort of chatting while I'm cutting. So I'm concentrating as well, I guess. And I'm sure you don't want to hear all the drivel that's going on in my life, which is all very boring, I assure you. Okay, let's go to the machine and do some stitching. I've got a piece of batting. It's maybe, I didn't measure it, it's maybe 25 inches wide, probably not quite that. And it's quite long, but it'll do. Just an offcut that I had. I intend to use all my other bits up, so this was the first one I grabbed. And I've sewn this down just on 2 of the rows, and I actually sewed one more to it and realised then I hadn't put the camera on. So now I'm going to sew a piece of white and making sure I don't sew the selvage piece. And I'm just using around about 1/4 of an inch. I think I mentioned to you before, this is where my sort of, I seem to sew best when it's on that sort of where it is now. I'm not being particular about it because I know that I'm going to fold it over, so whatever sort of seam allowance I have will be fine. Now this piece is obviously long, but it's also perhaps a little bit wide, given that all the others are not that wide. However, I'm going to put another wide piece on it. I'll just grab a piece from my stack. Let's see, it's this one. This one will do. And I'm just, if I think it's too wide, I can bring this in a bit and leave the white as a wider piece. I mean, I could go and cut it as well, but right now I'm sitting at the machine, so I don't want to go and cut it. I'm not worrying about which way my seams are. I'm just sewing. When I get sort of at the end of that, I'll leave all that on and I'll just roll this over, and you can see that that's fine. Now, if I did want something smaller, I could cut those strips, because I think my next strip is quite wide as well. Yes, it is. So what I might do is just cut that. Maybe I'll rip it too, see if I can get it to work. And before I go and sew that bit, it's quite crinkly, I probably will iron that little bit, that off cut that I've just pulled off there. But this one here, I'm not going to. I'll just pull it back out and it'll be fine. I should have really gone and done this at the table. I just didn't feel like getting up again. We'll roll this over, again making sure I push that selvage up out of the way. I don't think that that came out. I thought so. But I noticed that my thread wasn't in the needle. Now I'm going to stop and sew the other way in a moment. So with these bits here that are all longer, let me put that in shot for you. You can see I've got all these bits that are hanging down. What I'm going to do with those is just cut them. Now you remember I said that I wanted all of this to be finishing in a white, and now this one is not, but I'll show you what I'll do about that. If I turn this, I'll be able to first of all cut that a little better, although do I need to? Probably not. It may show through the white, but I really don't mind. Then I'm going to put a piece down here. And this is quite a thin little piece, this one. That's okay, it'll work. Now that bit fell off anyway, so I'll just leave that over there and sew this next bit down. I want to see if this is giving the effect that I want by going, vertically to where I just sewed. I think that's fine. Yep, happy with that, very happy. I'll put a thicker bit down here now. Doesn't really matter, I don't think, what I put down. So I guess it's kind of like the crossroads, the pink and brown block that I did on my other quilt, where I've got blocks that are intersecting at different angles. The difference with this is that I'm using the white in between, and I'm using the colour and the white fabric that I've stitched together first. And so I'm getting a completely different look with this one. I guess the question is, do I just keep going at these sort of right angles to each other like this, or do I put some on another angle? Because they're not really terribly right angled as such. And I'm just wondering if that's what I should do. I'll sew another couple and see how it goes, see if I like it. I think I'll turn it again and do some straight ones now. And like I did in that other quilt, I'll start it underneath here. Started here on the right. On the left. I've sewn to the edge of the piece here with this one. So I'll later, when I do another piece, I'll show you when I join two, how I intended to join them. I think at this stage, that's probably what I'm going to do, is just put a piece. Now I'm just making sure with my next piece that it is long enough to go to the end. Otherwise I would join two of the bits I've cut off together, but this is long enough. I have a terrible habit of pushing the fabric or whatever I'm sewing against the thread of the needle, and of course then it comes out, which is really quite annoying actually. And I also have a habit of losing my white pieces. Oh, here they are, in my lap. I wondered where they were. I'll just trim those self edges off. I could leave them, but I'll try and be a bit more cleaner in my quilting. Okay. Just make sure I'm within that turnover, which I'm not, so I'll have to add another piece on there. I thought I wasn't, and then I wondered if I was, so I'm going to have to add another piece, which is okay, I can do that. I did that on my other quilt, didn't I? And then I've done exactly the same thing on this quilt. Never mind. Everything can be fixed. Nothing is the end of the world. Now, that is the same strip, I think. Do I care? No, I'm going to keep going. I was going to unpick, and then I thought, no, I'll keep going. What I do need to do is to make up more of these strips. So I've really only done sort of 3 different sets of them. And you can see here I've put the same one here again. So I probably shouldn't have done that, but never mind, it's done now. And then just to finish this off, we'll do a white one, fat white one. Because I haven't come far enough on here, I'm going to swing back around here and I'm going to put a coloured one on. I think first of all, because I'll have to have a coloured then a white, I probably want to put, do I need a white? No, I don't, because all of those are white. So I don't have any colour touching colour, so I'll just do a coloured one. Make sure that this is going to go over. Yes, it will. And then when I flip this, I'll have that same thing where I turn part of it over and sew it down. And then you'll have white against, you won't have colour against colour because you've got white strips there. I'll probably go and iron this first before I do that, but I wanted to kind of show you. It's that same sort of method I used on my Crossroads quilt, and it worked really well on there, although I'm probably not going to do the fancy stitch. I will just do a straight stitch today, I think. And that way it will be work. I think that will work on here. So that's going to be where the joins are, and I will go and press it now. I think this might be something that benefits when it's all done and you're actually further away from it. I'm not sure I like the lines that you can see of the white and the colour, but I like the overall effect. So hopefully that will look nice when it's completely finished. And I probably will do some more. I want to show you how I'm going to join the next piece of batting on when I get to that point, which won't be long. So I'll be back with this one again and give you another look at it. But for now, thanks for watching. This is Deborah. Cheers.